AI Injustice in Sentencing Black Rituals Initiation course hosted by Master Prophet Noel. Imagine a computer program that decides how long a person should stay in jail. Sounds fair, right? A machine shouldn't have human feelings or prejudices, so it should be perfectly objective. But in today's courts, that computer program, driven by artificial intelligence, AI is doing the exact opposite. Instead of creating objective justice, it's acting like a digital mirror, reflecting and magnifying the oldest and deepest biases that already exist in our society. For Black and Hispanic communities, the use of AI in setting bail and determining prison sentences has become a high-tech system that unfairly tags them as high risk, leading to longer jail times and higher bonds than their white peers. This isn't just a technical mistake in the code. It is a profound spiritual crisis that requires a spiritual solution. The time has come for an immediate and radical shift. A Black Rituals Initiation course focused on reclaiming true, divine justice, the digital mirror, how AI learns bias. To understand how AI becomes biased, you have to understand where it gets its brain. AI doesn't learn from scratch. It learns from massive amounts of data, records of past crimes, arrests, neighborhood income levels, and who has been locked up before. The problem is that this historical data is already polluted by human racism and systemic inequality. Think of it this way: AI is like a student who is only given a history textbook written by one side in a conflict. If that textbook says that one group of people is always more likely to commit crimes because that group has been unfairly watched and arrested more often over decades, the AI accepts this as fact. For example, studies have shown that in many cities, police patrol Black and Hispanic neighborhoods more heavily than white neighborhoods. This results in more arrests for minor crimes in those areas. When the AI looks at this arrest data, it doesn't see over-policing. It only sees more crime. It then predicts that people from those communities are a higher risk for reoffending, simply because of where they live and the history of arrests there. Tools like Compass, correctional offender management profiling for alternative sanctions, are used in courts to create a risk score for defendants. Investigations have found that Black defendants who did not commit another crime were almost twice as likely to be misclassified as high risk compared to white defendants. Meanwhile, white defendants who did commit another crime were often wrongly labeled low risk. The AI is essentially designed to be harder on people of color because it learned from a biased history. The AI turns centuries of systemic injustice into indisputable math, making the prejudice feel objective and impossible to fight. This is why it's not just a system of injustice, but a crisis of the soul. The corruption running the system is being copied perfectly by the machine.
When a judge or jury makes a decision, they have to explain their reason. But when the AI is used, the reason is hidden inside what is called a black box, a proprietary software, meaning the code is secret, that the only company that made it understands it. This secret code becomes a shield. When lawyers and activists try to challenge the AI's risk score, they can't see how the score was calculated. They can't argue that the AI is mistakenly linking a person's poverty or their family history to future crime risks, because those factors are buried in AI technology. This lack of transparency means that human bias is simply being disguised. The judge can say, the computer says this person is a high risk, and that decision appears objective, even when the underlying data is rigged. The technological tools is used to spread bias and racism, making it seem clean and just, even though it's mathematically unfair. Why technical fixes are not enough. Civil rights groups and technical experts offer solutions like demanding these companies reveal their code, removing specific racial identifiers from the data, or hiring outside people to check the bias. These are necessary and helpful steps, but they are ultimately insufficient because they try to solve a problem of the spirit with a purely material fix. Think of it like trying to fix a leaky dam by patching a few holes with chewing gum. The underlying structure, the foundation of the dam, is weak and cracked from the top to the bottom. Our entire legal society structure is built on a foundation of historical trauma, colonization, and systematic racism. This debt is so deep that no matter how many times we try to build a better system, it will always use the old flawed foundation. Every new system, whether it's policing policies or an AI algorithm, is built by people who have inherited this foundational prejudice. The bias isn't just in the data from the last 5 years. It is an ancestral trauma passed down through generations of unjust laws and systems. Because the human consciousness that created the bias system is the same consciousness trying to fix the system. True lasting justice will remain out of reach. We are stuck in the loop of trying to debug or corrupt the code using the same flawed operating system that wrote it.
The urgency, the spiritual jailbreak. This is why there is an immediate and profound urgency for a spiritual solution. The AI is not just predicting the future. It is trapping generations in a cruel mathematical prophecy. The only true solution strong enough to override this corrupted human and algorithmic code is a spiritual awakening. A direct connection to universal principles of justice that are older and purer than any human law. This means reclaiming spiritual sovereignty through a Black Rituals initiation course. This is not about secret or dark practices. It is about reclaiming the sacred practices and knowledge of ancestral heritage, the powerful wisdom that colonization tried to erase. The goal is to communicate with divine beings who embody pure, objective justice and balance. For example, connecting with the Orishas like Ango, the god of justice, thunder, and truth who punishes corruption. Principles are the original, pure blueprint for a fair society. By engaging in spiritual discipline, like purification rites, reverence for ancestors, and deep meditation, communities can cleanse themselves of the collective trauma that makes them vulnerable to the AI's false predictions. When you are spiritually aligned and connected to the cosmic order of justice, you have an authority that bypasses and overrides the flawed human system. This spiritual power is the ultimate leverage. It gives practitioners the vision to see the corrupted roots of the algorithms, the voice to speak divine, unshakable truth in the courtroom, and the inner resilience to stand strong against a system designed to break their spirit. This spiritual initiation is the ultimate act of self-determination. It is the urgent recognition that human and AI law is fallible, but divine law is not. The spiritual awakening is the ultimate jailbreak.
Fighting the digital lie with divine truth. In the introduction of AI into the criminal sentencing has created a deep crisis. Coding systematic racism into mathematical prophecies and harming Black and Hispanic communities. Simply cleaning up the data or auditing the software will not work because the bias is rooted in the unhealed spiritual trauma of the fundamentally unjust society. The only path forward that matches the urgency and the depth of this problem is a radical collective spiritual awakening, the Black Ritual Initiation course. By returning to the principles of our ancestral deities like Chango and the 7 African powers of Santeria, communities of color gain the most powerful tool of all, a spiritual authority rooted in eternal truth that transcends and nullifies the flawed, biased programming of the human machine. Fight for justice in the 21st century is no longer just a legal battle. It is an urgent spiritual war waged to replace a digital lie with divine truth. Urgency is now. To dismantle the structures of injustice, we must engage in every defense available, both earthly and ancestral. It is time to call upon the divine firewall against corruption and biased court rulings. We invoke the magnificent power of Chango and the Oshas and the thunder, the fire, the ultimate justice, to bring truth and clarity to every legal proceeding. We petition the combined might of the 7 African powers of Santeria to serve as our spiritual counsel and defense team to break the chains of false accusations and lies, and to ensure that no biased judge or jury can deny us the righteous protection we deserve.